What did you say?
On how, well, I had unmuted, so hopefully it didn't do that. Did you hear me?
No.
Okay. So when I on the hold, that wasn't my thing.
All right, hit it. Good morning. It was not a very auspicious way for us to start our first meeting, Kelly. But nonetheless, we'll call this meeting to order. Appreciate everyone being here today at the first public meeting of the Marijuana Regulatory Agency. We are excited to have these opportunities to present information on what's going on within the agency and have an opportunity to hear feedback from the public on all things related to the programs that we administer within the agency. My name is Andrew Brisbois. I'm the Executive Director of the Marijuana Regulatory Agency. I've been with the agency since we began, back when we were still the Bureau of Medical Marijuana Regulation, through our transition as the Bureau of Marijuana Regulation, and now in this new form as the Marijuana Regulatory Agency. We have committed to having these public meetings as an opportunity to hear feedback from the public on the programs that we administer, and we want this opportunity to be a good, positive experience for everyone. We're open to hearing your feedback, and we also want to make sure that we're transparent about everything that's going on within the agency as it relates to the administration of the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act, the Medical Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act, and the Michigan Regulation and Taxation of Marijuana Act. We do intend to live stream all of these meetings, so hello to all of you that may be watching on Facebook Live, either live or later on at any future time. So these meetings will be available and accessible to anyone throughout the state, regardless of where we're physically located when we have these sessions. Moving forward, we do intend to have these meetings coincide with work group opportunities so that we can have some targeted discussions on issues that we think are of most critical importance with regard to the programs that we administer. So those work group topics and the mechanisms by which we will invite individuals to participate in those will be announced at a later date, but we will have those throughout the state along with these meetings. This first meeting is being held here in the Williams Building in downtown Lansing, but we do intend to have these meetings throughout the state. So the schedule for the future meetings has been determined and will be published soon. But our next meeting will be held in Detroit at Cadillac Place on August 29th. And then in October on the 28th, it will be held in Traverse City at the Park Place. And then on December 9th, we'll hold a meeting at the Flint City Hall. So I think this will provide a good opportunity for us to go out and seek input from individuals who might not be able to make it to Lansing, and also provide, again, an opportunity for us to hold work group sessions in those areas to gather feedback on an ongoing basis from individuals interested in the programs from throughout the state. As you'll see on the agenda, this will be sort of our standing agenda as we move forward with these public meetings. We'll have a report from the executive director's perspective and also an update from our licensing division as well as our enforcement division on what's going on within the agency. I want to reiterate our mission is to establish Michigan as the national model for a regulatory program that stimulates business growth while ensuring safe consumer access to marijuana. All the decisions that we make are intended to try and fulfill that mission, and all the staff here are committed to ensuring that Michigan is the model program for the rest of the country. And in fulfillment of that mission, we are continuing our commitment, as we've had since the initiation of this program, to outreach, education, and collaboration. So we want to work with other partners. We view this as sort of we're the hub of a wheel, but on those spokes, we need to reach out to lots of other agencies and get input from lots of other stakeholders to ensure that we're making the best decisions to ensure this is a successful program and this industry can succeed in the state. So we want to continue to collaborate with all of those interested parties. And we want to continue to provide outreach and education to individuals who are interested in getting into the program as licensees, as well as to municipalities that play a critical role in ensuring that this industry is successful in the state. And the staff reports that you hear today and in future meetings will provide some detail as to what's going on in the agency and how we're going about fulfilling that mission. One issue that I wanted to tackle before I pass it along to the rest of our staff to provide their individual reports is about industrial hemp, and that we are continuing to work with our partners at the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development in implementing the changes to their act, to the Industrial Hemp Research and Development Act, as well as the language that was in the ballot initiative from 2018, and determining what role the facilities that we license play in that new side of the market, how products will be treated that are made from industrial hemp. We get a lot of questions about that, so I just wanted to touch on that briefly to say that we're continuing to have those conversations and more guidance will be forthcoming in the future. So a little bit of patience there as we work with our partners over at MDARD to figure out the best way to approach those programs. I know everyone's anxious for answers, and we're anxious to give them to you, but we want to make sure that as we approach any rulemaking that might be necessary from our side and the rulemaking that's going on at MDARD, that those coincide and we ensure that there's clarity in terms of how that new side of the industry will be dealt with in the state. So that's all for me talking for the moment. I'm going to turn it over to Krista Mormon, who's going to give an update on the area that she administers.
Good morning. As Andrew said, I'm Krista Mormon, and I'm manager of the customer service section in the medical marijuana program. A little bit about myself. I've been in state government for about 20 years, most of it in licensing, regulation, and compliance. And the last 10 years with Laura, and most recent 3 years with the medical marijuana program. So I have a lot of experience. And just to let you know a little bit about the program, voters approved the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act in November of 2008, which established or made it legal for the use of medical marijuana. As a result, our program started and we administer the act. We take applications for patients and caregivers and issue the registry cards. To become a patient, you need to qualify by having an MD or a DO that's licensed in the state of Michigan certify that you have a debilitating medical condition. Those conditions are listed in the Act, which is available on our website at www.michigan.gov/MMP. It is also available on our paper application, and like I said before, any MD or DO in the state of Michigan can certify those conditions. If your condition is not, you can always, or approved, you can also petition to add conditions, and information is also available on the website that I just gave you the petition form, and then instructions on how to file that. Currently, adults over the age of 18 must be a Michigan resident to qualify for the program. And they must, again, have that MD or DO certification certifying that they have the debilitating medical condition. Minors under the age of 18 may also qualify if they have 2 separate physician certifications certifying that they have the debilitating medical condition, along with approval from a parent or legal guardian that also has to serve as their caregiver. Instructions for both those applications are also available on our website. A caregiver must be over the age of 21 and must be designated by a qualifying patient. We do not have a separate registry card just for a caregiver, so a patient must designate you as their caregiver. You must also, by looking at the act, you can find out there are some disqualifying convictions, and you cannot have one of those disqualifying convictions to apply. Applying by paper, there is a paper application for both patient and designated a caregiver for a patient on our website. You must, while completing that application, be sure to complete all forms and include everything in the instructions on our website. So there are detailed instructions that includes the physician certification, along with a check or money order in the completed application. Be sure when you're filling out that paperwork to submit everything in one envelope. Don't combine applications for multiple patients, and include on the checklist everything that's required. Oftentimes, we receive separate envelopes with the money separate from the application, or multiple applications in one envelope, and that will just delay or possibly deny your application. We also recommend that you do not have third party send in your paperwork, because that's oftentimes where they will send in packets with multiple patient applications that will just delay your application. If you have any questions, you are more than welcome to call our customer service line. That is, I'm the manager of the customer service section, and our number there is 517-284-6400. That is also on our website, and we are more than happy to assist you from 8 to 4:45 every day except for state holidays. If you do by chance receive a denial, I just want to make sure that you know that you need to follow the instructions on that denial of your application. There are detailed requirements there, and you will more than likely have to submit a new application. So each application that is denied is treated as a denial, and you must resubmit the information. It is listed, and we can always help you on our customer service line. And currently, registered with our program as of June 1st, we have 287,094 patients and 40,120 caregivers registered with our program. Due to that high volume, last year we realized that we needed to find a way to process these applications more efficiently. So we looked into an online application. And as of October 2018, we implemented that online application. And I am going to introduce Lindsay Russman, who is the manager of our application section in the program, to talk more about our online application. Lindsay?
Thank you.
Perfect. Good morning. Again, my name is Lindsay Russman, and I manage the application section at the Medical Marijuana Program. I've been with Licensing and Regulatory Affairs for about 15 years now. As Krista said, in October, we went live with our online system where patients can log in and create an account online, which is creating a username and password, entering their name and address, and registering with the program. They can submit their patient-only application online. In order to do so, you would need to have a physician that has an online account as well. So we've worked with physicians licensed in the state of Michigan to let them know they can register with us so their patients can register online. Currently, we have about 60 licensed physicians that are registered online with us. So that patient would just go online, fill out all the same fields that they would on a paper application, pay their money online and submit it. As soon as that is submitted, it's instantly sent over to their physician. So once you do go see your physician, that physician can certify online. That very same day, that license will be issued to you. And as of May 1st, as soon as you get that approval email, it's going to actually serve as a temporary card for you. So you can actually instantly go out and use that card at a licensed facility to purchase medical marijuana. So it really helps save all that mail time back and forth. So, I mean, you could apply the same day, see your doctor the same day, and actually get that card the very same day in the mail to receive your medical marijuana. So it's very easy. You can apply online, you can renew online, and you can submit any type of amendment for changes online as well. All the instructions are on our website. There's page by page, screen by screen, helpful tips on how to do that online. And a lot of the physicians also are helping those patients to get through that process online as well. Since we started in October, we've had about 5,000 applicants actually submit their applications or renewals online. So it's really escalated that process and made it a lot faster for them. All the information is available on our website, or you can call us and we can help walk you through any of those processes at all. So I'm going to now introduce Sarah from our IT and Administrative Support section, and she'll give you information about her section as well. Sarah.
Thank you, Lindsay. Good morning. My name is Sarah Hernandez, and I'm the manager in the IT and Administrative Support section. My section is basically comprised of 3 different work areas: IT support, obviously, finance and administration, and then day-to-day operations. MRA uses an Excella, or a system platform that's called Excella. That system launched in December of 2017, and we've been working on further development of the infrastructure for that system. The infrastructure includes integrations with other systems. Other systems include public-facing portal for online applications, record-keeping and searchable data, fingerprinting, digital fingerprinting system, and Metric. We're continually enhancing IT systems as business needs are identified and as MRA grows. Most recently, we've been working to improve efficiencies to the Metric system and another program that's called NCS Analytics. Metric is the seat-to-sale tracking system that's used by licensees to enter all marijuana-related transactions. NCS Analytics provides MRA with data-driven solutions that aggregate, analyze, and report information about the Metric transactions. So they're all interwoven, they all communicate with each other. NCS Analytics basically adds another layer of transparency to marijuana transactions and is primarily used for enforcement purposes. In the near future, we hope to add financial deposit information to the NCS Analytics program. More information to come forward about that. And then also we are working with financial institutions in order to be able to add financial deposit information to that NCS Analytics system and provide more information for MRA about that. MRA is planning a second Metric advanced user training session. We'll be sharing more information about that so licensees can sign up for additional training. Reminder that training modules can be found on the Metric site at metric.com. And also, if you're interested, please sign up for email notifications. You can go to the michigan.gov LoRa page. At the bottom of the page, there's a link there for email subscriptions, and that'll give you access to real-time information that MRA puts out. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. So next up, we're going to have a report from our licensing division. The licensing division within MRA encompasses medical facility application processing as well as adult use facility applications, which obviously we're not accepting yet. They're going to provide an update on the implementation of that program. So I'll turn it over to Desmond Mitchell, who is our licensing division director.
Good morning, everyone. Like Andrew said, I'm Desmond Mitchell. I'm the licensing division director. I'm going to do 3 things today. I'll tell you a little bit about myself and my background. Also give you a quick overview of the licensing division. And then I'm going to go ahead and provide you with an update on some of the statistics for licensing processing for the fiscal year, and also since we were established as our own agency at the end of April of this year. I've been a state employee for a little over 16 years. 15 of those years have been with Lara, and they've always been in some type of licensing or regulatory capacity. From 2013 until April of this year, I oversaw the registry card program for patients and caregivers. In April of this year, I accepted the position as the licensing division director, and I'm very excited about that. As far as our division, we recently restructured the licensing division, and it's made up now of 3 sections. That was done primarily to go ahead and increase efficiency, and also to go ahead and make sure that we were able to go ahead and implement adult use as efficiently as possible when that comes online in a few months. So as it is right now, we have our first section is our intake section. Our intake section handles customer service inquiries as far as emails, telephone calls from the public and licensees. They also go ahead and they're the first group of staff that accept the applications for medical licensing right now. They collect those applications, organize them, and prep them for review by our medical facility licensing section. Our intake section will do the same thing for our adult use section once that comes online. As far as our medical facility licensing, staff in that section review and process those applications, which consists of them going ahead and conducting the financial and criminal background check reviews, making sure that all of the requirements as far as the application are met, and making determinations about different things related to, let's say that we get an investigation report or an inspection. They make sure that everything is in order before they go ahead and make a determination about those applications. Our adult use section will do the same thing when it comes online here within the next few months. What I'd like to do now is to go ahead and provide you with an update on some of our statistics as far as processing for the fiscal year. First category we have is the number of applications that we've processed so far in fiscal year 19. Now, this category includes applications for pre-qualification and state operating licenses, and it also includes denials in both categories. For this fiscal year, we've processed 644 pre-qualification applications. We've processed 220 state operating license applications for a combined total of 864 applications that have been processed so far this year. The number of state operating licenses we've approved in fiscal year 19 is 180. Next category is the applications processed since our agency was established at the end of April. This includes applications for pre-qualification, state operating licenses, and denials in both categories. So since we've been established as an agency, we've processed 173 pre-qualification applications, and we've processed 40 state operating license applications for a combined total of 213. Next category is state operating licenses that have been approved since our agency was established at the end of April. That's 40 state operating licenses that have been approved. So the percentage increase in applications that we've processed per month since our agency was established compared to the average number of applications that were processed per month prior to our agency being established. Well, just to give you some background, an average of 95.86 applications were processed per month on average prior to our agency being established, compared to 213 in May after the agency was established, which is a 122.2% increase. And the last category is percentage increase in state operating licenses since our agency was established compared to the average number of applications that were processed per month prior to the agency being established. An average of 20 state operating licenses were approved on average per month prior to our agency being established, compared to 40 in May after our agency was established, which is a 100% increase. Now, I know it's only been a month since our agency was established, but what we hope to go ahead and do is to continue to go ahead and build on that progress that we've made and improve on it. I'm going to go ahead now and turn it over to Chris Jordan. Chris is the manager for our medical facility application processing section, and she's going to provide you some additional information. Thank you.
Good morning. My name's Chris Jordan. As Desmond said, I am the manager of the Medical Facilities Licensing Division. The biggest news that we have to announce is that we have just recently posted our revised application. It was revised for a couple of reasons. One was to take account of the statutory changes that had been made that became effective in January, primarily that redefined the definition of applicant. And then secondly was also to give us an opportunity to review and revise the documentation that we're requiring and to make sure that our application is closely aligned to the statutory requirements. You'll notice if you've looked on our website that our layout's a little bit different. We have all of our forms listed individually. We still do intend, though, for applicants to submit those as a packet. We do intend early next week to post a complete application packet that will comprise all of those forms. Folks liked having them, always requested them to be individual, and so we wanted to offer that in both ways. So if you do create an application online and submit your application online, please do not try to submit those forms individually. If you'll follow the application instruction booklet, that has also been revised and has all the information you need to be able to submit your application so that we can move it through as quickly as possible. Our numbers have increased, but our attention to detail has not decreased at all. We are still looking very closely at these applications and trying to determine eligibility strictly aligned with what the statute requires. And we believe that we're doing that effectively at this time. You'll notice when you look at the application, the designations of applications have changed a bit. When we first created our application, we basically had an applicant packet and a supplemental applicant packet. And we found that that was a little bit difficult because we were asking for information about entities and sole proprietors on the same forms, and entities and sole proprietors don't have the same facets that we need to get into. Same way with supplemental applicants, we were asking for supplemental entities and people on the same form. So we decided to break that apart. And so now what you'll see is an applicant entity packet that is strictly aligned to what an entity who is applying for a license would need to provide to us. And you'll see a sole proprietor pre-qualification application. So we have the AEPA and the SPPA. So if you're sole proprietor, you look for sole proprietor. If you're an applicant entity, you look for applicant entity. Same way for supplemental applicants. So if it's an entity that is supplemental, they have an ownership interest in the applicant entity, they're going to fill the supplemental applicant packet out, and a supplemental individual is going to fill out the supplemental individual packet. So those designations are SEPA and SIPA. So again, please do not, if you go online and upload your application, do not upload those as separate documents. That will just slow down your application. You want us processing your application, not combining your application. So if you'll make sure that you combine those, follow the instruction booklet. There are tips in there for what you need to provide and how it needs to be provided. So we encourage you to take a look at that. Some of the changes that we made were, with the statute, there was a designation that would eliminate some ownership interests who had a 10% ownership interest or less, as long as they weren't managing the actual entity or they weren't engaging in that business process. So we created a separate form for those to be provided to us. You'll find that on 2A, it's part 2, so the ownership interest is still 2A. We kept all of our disclosures the same numbers, the attestations the same letters, to try to make continuity. Most of the forms are very much the same, ask for the same information, with the exception of places where we've tried to reduce and cut back information that we had previously asked for. For those individuals that do have a 10% ownership interest or less, we're not asking for a supplemental packet of application initially. We are reviewing those applications for applicability, and then we will follow up and ask for a packet if we need it on those people. One of the things that we really looked at closely was trying to reduce, if we could, the initial documentation that is required for these applications, and to limit it to those things that we really felt like we had seen tangible results in being able to determine eligibility based on the statute. So one of the things that we did was that we are reducing the number of the time period of financial statements that we're requiring. We used to require 3 years of financial account statements. Now we're going to require the last 12 months. With the intent that if we identify those specific applications where we need to go further and we need to ask for further documentation, we will do so, but it lessens the burden initially on all applicants and limits it to those where we really need to do that follow-up. Same way with real estate documentation. We used to require all deeds, all leases, and now we're cutting that back for supplemental individuals to only provide us with those deeds and leases on applications where they're using those real property for capitalization purposes. So if it's not used for capitalization to meet the capitalization requirement, we're not requiring that those be submitted any longer. And some of you who have gone through this process are already going, I wish I didn't have to do all of that. So we apologize for that, and we thank you for going through the process with us so that we could learn these things. We've also modified the criminal history disclosure to specifically exempt traffic violations from the form. You still have to report all misdemeanors and all felonies except for those that are traffic violations. So best practices, please make sure that when you submit your entity documents that you submit actually documents that have actually been executed, agreements that have been signed off on. A lot of times we get agreements where there's no signature, operating agreements where there's no signature, there's no date. We're not going to accept those. So you'll have to, so please make sure that those have all been executed. Management agreements, any of those, anything that affects that entity or that applicant needs to be fully executed. Criminal history, disclose. Ever means ever. So on the application, when it says, have you ever been arrested, charged, indicted, all of those things that it lists on there, if you've ever had that happen, whether you were a juvenile, whether you were an adult, whether it's been expunged, whether it's been dismissed, all of that has to be disclosed. You will do yourself a favor if you will disclose it on the front end. Do not count on an iChat. It will not pick up everything we find. Your memory is the best thing that you can go by when you know to provide that information to us. So if you were a juvenile and your charge was dismissed pursuant to HIDA or a marijuana thing for 7411, you still need to disclose that, okay? Statement of moneylender is required on all individuals who are providing capital if that capital is not in the account of the entity. So even if you are an owner of the company, this is your capital contribution. If it's still in your bank account, it hasn't been transferred over to the entity, you're still going to have to fill out a statement of moneylender. That's one of the areas that we have seen issues that cause people confusion. Tax documents, please submit all of your tax return. All of the schedules that go, anything where you entered a number, you need to give that related schedule to us so that we have that. All W-2s, 1099s, and K-1s. And then lastly, I just wanted to touch on amendments. Amendments encompass any change to that actual application. So changes in ownership is one of the biggest ones where we see confusion. Business buyouts, if you're buying a provisioning center that's open, We need to know about that sooner rather than later. We'll need all purchase documents, all of anything that is written and executed and signed that will transfer the interest from one individual to another or an entity to another. We're going to need all of that documentation. And as I said, let us know that sooner rather than later. That's just really helpful to us to know what's going on with all of our applications. So next up is Jennifer Piggott.
Good morning. I'm Jennifer Piggott. I'm the manager of the adult use licensing section. This section is a new section within the licensing division. The section will be responsible for reviewing and processing applications for state licenses under the authority of the Michigan Regulation and Taxation of Marijuana Act, or MRTMA as we call it. I'm in the process of staffing the section to appropriately handle the licensing needs we are anticipating and to provide excellent customer service. We conducted a survey and had a great response, and so we are anticipating that as we staff accordingly. Additionally, we're refining procedures and improving the licensing process to be able to make licensing determinations within the statutory timeframe. As we move forward, we intend to release advisory bulletins specific to adult use, post instructional and informational materials, educational outreach items, update the FAQs, and post additional website content that will be helpful to both applicants and eventual licensees. As it relates to the application, we are in the process of creating a paper and an online application that is specific to adult use. The application, like medical, will be a two-step application process. Application for pre-qualification being step 1, and an application for a state license being step 2. The paper application should be made available later this summer, and the online application is being developed and will be made available through our Excella platform. The agency intends to begin accepting all applications for state license this fall. Excuse me. Finally, as it concerns rules, we are working towards a timeline that has our emergency rules being filed later this month. Once promulgated, the emergency rules will be in place for 6 months. These rules will establish additional license types and will also provide information regarding those licenses and the appropriate requirements. In addition, the application requirements have been refined in these rules to help streamline the process. We have also set up a modified application process to fast track our existing medical licensees who intend to apply under adult use. Lastly, we also address social equity within our emergency rules, and Michelle Marshall will speak to that topic.
Thank you, Jennifer. Good morning. My name is Michelle Marshall. I'm the manager of the intake section. The intake section is responsible for the initial handling of all the applications received into the agency. We process them through the Excella platform and move them out to the medical application section and soon the adult use application section. The intake section is also the customer service unit for the licensing division. We handle all of the calls that come into the agency as well as the emails. You're getting responses from the intake section. Delivering a quality customer service experience to the public is among the top priorities for the section. Our customer service focus will soon be expanding to include the implementation of the social equity program, currently being developed and based on the social equity provision in the MRTMA. The social equity program will have a dedicated team of representatives committed to providing a customer service experience specific to the social equity platform. The social equity program being developed will identify communities that have been disproportionately impacted by the prohibition of marijuana, incorporate feedback received from the public that was gathered in the social equity survey conducted by Marijuana Regulatory Agency, and provide services, resources, and assistance to qualified applicants. We look forward to sharing more detailed information on the social equity component of the adult use program, along with advisory bulletins when the adult use platform is released to the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Next up, we have Kavita Kale, who is our newly appointed Director of the Enforcement Division.
Good morning, everyone. As Andrew said, I am very new to MRA, and I am serving in the role of Director of the Enforcement Section. By way of background, I've been with the state since 2003, and I've worked with Department of Community Health, Department of Health and Human Services, and most recently with the Michigan Public Service Commission in Lara. And so my background is in regulation, process improvement, and policy implementation. The Enforcement Division is responsible for enforcement and legal activities. Brian Hanna is our Enforcement Section Manager, and Colleen Curtis is our Legal Section Manager, and they will both share some information about everything that we do in our division. We also have two laboratory specialists, Allison Chirio and Claire Patterson, as points of contact to help review and work through questions and concerns related to licensed safety compliance facilities, or otherwise known as labs, and issues related to samples and testing. Additionally, enforcement is also responsible for ensuring compliance from all licensees. We provide education and coaching while also serving as the point of contact to help protect the health and safety of Michigan citizens. Our goal is to assist licensees maintain compliance while operating successfully under the Medical Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act. To that end, we recommend that all licensees and staff at every facility be familiar with our rules and published bulletins. It is of the utmost importance that at least one individual at each of your facilities is very well versed in all the rules, regulations, and bulletins. If there are any questions, do not hesitate to contact us. Additionally, if you have any questions related to packaging, package status, labeling, production batches, harvest batches, plant tracking, etc., they should all be directed to Metric at support@metric.com. Please don't forget to include your facility name, your license number, and the Metric employee ID number. And now I'm going to turn it over to Brian Hanna.
Good morning. My name is Brian Hanna. I am manager of the enforcement section. My team is responsible for the inspections and investigations of the medical marijuana facilities. To contact enforcement regarding medical marijuana facilities, questions on inspections or information regarding facilities on compliance, please contact us at 517-284-8597. Or feel free to email us at mra-enforcement@michigan.gov. Some compliance issues I would like to discuss this morning that I'd like to discuss is some applicants and licensees must report material changes to the department before making that material change to their facility. Any modifications to the marijuana facility that was not inspected or part of the original marijuana facility plan or final inspection, please contact the MRA enforcement section. That includes any changes to the facility plan. Please, piggybacking off of what Kavita said, please contact Metric Support also at 1-877-566-6506 for any support related to Metric, especially if there's a task or procedure in Metric and they don't know how to do that. Please contact them first and they can educate you and get you moving through the system. Also, as a reminder, any applicant or licensee shall notify the department within 1 business day of becoming aware of or should have been aware of any adverse reactions to a marijuana product or sold or transferred. Also, want to discuss we have a map of active medical marijuana facilities located at our website, www.michigan.gov/MRA. That map is pretty popular. We've had over 750,000 clicks on that map. And what that map provides is the locations of the licensed facilities throughout the state of Michigan. We've listened to some feedback, and that map is now selectable where you can actually click on the facility license type and find what facility license type that you're looking for and their address. And we even highlight the ones that do provisioning centers that have home delivery. With that, I will turn it over to Colleen Curtis, manager of the legal section.
Thanks, Brian. I'm Colleen Curtis, and I have a few legal section topics to talk about. First is an overview on the rules. Once emergency rules for adult use are published, the MRA will immediately start work on turning them into permanent rules. At the same time, the MRA also plans to open back up the existing medical marijuana facilities permanent rules to address the sunset and to make necessary changes. We have received feedback on the current permanent rule set, and our plan is to create topic-based rule sets. What this means is that the rule set would cover a regulatory area. For example, the rule set would cover laboratory practices and standards, which would then encompass both the medical and adult use. The end goal is to have a topic-based rule set that will be user-friendly. The next subject is hearings. There are two types of hearings. First, when an application is denied, an applicant can request a hearing. Second, when there are violations by a licensee. MRA is working on the compliance process, and more information will be forthcoming. Next, I want to talk about grants. The Michigan legislature has appropriated a total of $3 million for the medical marijuana operation and oversight grants. These grants are available to counties and approved by MRA for the education, communication, and outreach regarding the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act of 2008. A total of 42 counties are participating in these grants for fiscal year 2019. And lastly, if you have any questions or need more information, please feel free to contact the legal section. Our email is mra-legal@michigan.gov. Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen. Is on? Everybody hear me? There we go. The last piece of the meeting is always going to be an opportunity for public comment. This is an opportunity for any member of the public that wishes to address the agency can come forward and provide those comments. This is going to be sort of a one-way conversation. We just want to hear what you have to say, not engaging in dialogue or answering questions. If you do have any questions, you can always feel free to call the agency through any of the contact numbers we provided or send us an email. We would appreciate it if everyone would limit their comments to no more than 5 minutes, so we have an opportunity for everyone who might want to address us to have their chance. The first comment card we received is from Angie Roulier. Sorry if I said that incorrectly. Addressing us about patient access.
Good morning. Thank you for hearing me. My name is Angie. I am a muscular dystrophy patient. I have been a medical marijuana patient for almost a decade now. Things I have noticed when I first became a patient, I had no problem gaining access to the medication that helps me live my life. It has changed my life completely. I was able to go back to work. I was able to stop all the pharmaceuticals. Currently, I take nothing but cannabis. Since our current governor has come into power, I have found myself having to ration my own medication. And in the short amount of time, I have already found myself back in the hospital last week due to having to cut my medication in half because it just isn't out there anymore because we were denied the caregiver system. Myself and almost 300,000 other people are extremely disappointed in this. We voted for this. We do have freedom of choice to sign that waiver. We are grown-ups and we should be able to make those decisions for ourselves and not have government make those for us. Again, a little disappointed that our governor, coming from a place where she had to fight for her own family's medication and health care, she knows the frustration, she knows the anger, and for her to inflict that on almost 300,000 of us is unfair, it's unwarranted. So I personally am asking for the caregiver system back so I can continue to be without the problems that I had before I started my medical marijuana regimen. Thank you.
Thank you, Angie. Next up, we have Don Koschmeider, who wants to address us regarding racketeering taking place and people needing to be indicted.
Well, my name is Don Koschmeider. I'm from Cadillac. I think that a whole bunch of racketeering is taking place. I hope this board here is good and honorable and ethical. The former board was there were some obstructionists. I believe that politicians like Michael Calton, Clint Kesto, Ron Bogie, Rick Jones, there's several others I could name. There's been so much payoffs and backroom deals. Just recently, Arlen Meekoff, there's a scandal with him brewing, I think. A lot of these politicians say that safe transfer points, dispensaries, provisioning centers were all illegal, and now you find that they're retiring and they're lobbyists, or they're trying to get licenses themselves. The Medical Marijuana Act says that basically says you can have this much, you can possess this much, you can grow this much. Doesn't mention the words safe transfer points or provisioning centers or dispensaries anywhere in there. Yet for years, hundreds of safe transfer points, dispensaries, whatever you want to call them, popped up. Some prosecutors looked the other way. Some police were worried about child molesters and heroin and meth, things that they should be. But a lot of times you saw policing for profit. You know, they're going by a 2013 Supreme Court case called McQueen, saying that patient-to-patient transfers are illegal. But if you read the Medical Marijuana Act in Section 4 and Section 8, it's clear. I mean, I get that they address the 5-patient caregiver connectivity through LARA. Respect that, but why are these words in there saying that any registered qualifying patient or registered primary caregiver who sells marijuana to someone who is not allowed the medical use, this is what happens to you? It's a $2,000 fine, 6 years in prison, your card is revoked. Why are these words in there? They have to be given meaning. Some of us are still fighting this out through the courts. We'll see what happens. Some are in the Supreme Court. I think that there needs to be accountability. There needs to be transparency. Congratulations to everyone who's gotten a license and has gone through the rigors licensing process. But a lot of mom and pop businesses have been squashed out. These capitalization requirements, I feel they're designed to kill mom and pop. Minorities and people of color own businesses just so big shots can run the whole thing. You got the Cannabis Cup and Clio, licensed dispensaries selling recreational. There's so much stuff that's going on. So much racketeering. People need to be indicted. People need to go to prison. You know, I could puke. Thank you.
Don. Next up, we have Wes Lutz, wants to speak about the rules.
I'm Wes Lutz from Choice Labs, and I just wanted to reiterate that we've made an offer to the caregivers of the state that they can bring their product to us, our processing center, and at no charge. We will get it tested through the system and get it back out to their customers that they want us to secure transport it to. We'll do it at no financial gain at our point. So I just would like to tell you again, if you have a caregiver and you need to take it someplace, you want to get it in the system and it will pass the test, we'd be happy to do that for you. Thank you.
Wes. Next up, we have Maxwell Murphy, who wants to talk about caregiver material.
I am Maxwell Murphy from Choice Labs. I'm the person at Choice Labs who's the contact point for caregivers who have clean material that want to bring it into the licensed system. I wanted to give you folks a report that effort is going well. Caregivers are contacting us, and we are successfully bringing caregiver material into the system. So any caregivers who have material, any caregivers who have material that will pass testing, please contact us, and we'll send it out for testing, have it secure transported to the provisioning centers that need the material. We do that at no profit to Choice Labs, and we're happy to do that for the community and keep everything moving along.
Thank you. Next up, we have Jacob Abraham, who wants to discuss product shortage and patient access.
Hello, everybody. I'm not here to beat you guys up. I think you guys have the roughest job in the state right now. So just hold your heads up. But right now there is a shortage. There is no flour available. I don't know what else to say. Patient access. I have patients that are walking out because they can't get the meds that their bodies are accustomed to. It's not, you can't just switch producers and think it's going to have the same effect. It's like any other medicine. It's like any other product. It's a slap in the face. I know you guys aren't enforcers, but I would like to see you guys work with law enforcement a little more. There was an event in Clio, I think the gentleman brought it up, where roughly, this is a low estimate, but probably about 30,000 pounds of marijuana products were sold at untaxed at a permanent recreational event. And it's a slap in the face being a licensee, and everyone just turns a blind eye to this. Why are the caregivers going to bring their stuff to Choice Labs when they can go to an event like this and sell all their stuff for tax-free money? This boils down to us as businesses trying to survive and patients like Angie trying to survive, and just my heart goes out to them more than it does to me, because they're just trying to live their life. I'm just trying to provide for my family. Please, whatever we can do just to get flour into the system. There is no flour in the system. There's none to be bought. I'm running out. I'm going to close my door. I'm going to lay off 20 people. There's no flour in the system. Please help. Thanks.
Next up, we have William McElmurray, I believe it says. Thank you. Wants no topic listed, but go ahead.
Thank you for your time. My name is William McElmurray. I'm a registered state of Michigan building official for a community here in Michigan. And some points of concerns that we're experiencing in our community is there are homes being bought from foreclosures, land bank properties, and these homes are being turned into grow facilities, private grow facilities, and we don't have currently a legal arm to enforce these facilities. And also, if you would take in consideration of that, and also the Bureau of Fire Services would like us to, they would like to be the last enforcing agency in prior to issuing licenses. Under my jurisdiction, me being having authority of jurisdiction, I'm the guy that goes in and issues the certificate of occupancy. I feel that the Bureau of Fire Services should conduct their inspection prior to us. That is all. If you, like I said, if you take into consideration my comments and concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Next up, we have Ryan Fitzpatrick speaking on organic farming and green laws.
Hello. Sorry, excuse me. My name is Ryan Fitzpatrick. I'll be graduating from CMU with a bachelor's in biology this August, and I'm hoping to become an organic farmer myself with obtaining a micro business license to use marijuana as a cash crop in my business. And I'm wondering if the board has any plans to implement any laws or programs regarding a tax break or reduced license fee for people growing USDA certified organic or using sustainable farming practices to help them kind of get an edge in the industry, because I'm not sure if the board is aware that there is an enormous carbon footprint of medical marijuana grows going on right now, especially the Class C grows, growing in a warehouse using inefficient lights, fans running 24/7, and an enormous amount of synthetic pesticides and fertilizers is incredibly unsustainable. This problem needs to be addressed and made known to the public. And then I'm also wondering, just for the micro business license, if I would be able to deliver my products to other cities, and if those cities are opted out, would I still be able to deliver there? And if I would be able to use a third party to deliver my products. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, we have Diane Ferguson speaking on taxes, the MMMA, and the endocannabinoid system.
My name is Diane Ferguson, and I'd like to thank you for opening up the forum for public comment. First thing I'd like to say is I heard the board speak twice on enforcement. I'd like to know, what do you do when you violate your own laws? Because it's what you're doing. This book right here is a book of laws. And in Article 9, subsection 8, clearly defines taxing our food and our medicine, and cannabis is both. It is a superfood, and it heals our body. It heals our body because we have an endocannabinoid system. Every living human being has it. I do not feel that this tax on a plant, I'll read it. Would you like me to read it to you? Article 9, subsection 8 clearly says at the very bottom, it's section 8 under sales and taxes. No sales tax or use tax shall be charged or collected from and after January 1st, 1975 on the sale or use of prescribed drugs for human use, or on the sale or use of food for human consumption, except in the case of prepared food, such as Wendy's, for immediate consumption as defined by law. This provision shall not apply to alcoholic beverages. I don't have an alcoholic cannabinoid system. I do, however, have a cannabinoid system that requires the cannabinoids found in the cannabis plant for me to stay healthy. I do not support a tax on this plant at all. In fact, I find that the board and anyone participating in a license is just as guilty. I'm a felon because I participated in what was rightfully mine to begin with. At birth, I was given this cannabinoid system. I should have never applied for a card, should have never asked permission from another human being to do what the good Lord already gave me the right to do. And it says so in Genesis 1:29. I'm a felon because Lara issued medical marijuana cards to police officers. It also speaks in 2008, Medical Marijuana Act, what responsibility falls on who for obtaining those fake medical marijuana cards. I can't take someone's Blue Cross Blue Shield medical card, nor their driver license, and use them and not be held reliable for either violation of HIPAA laws or for violating Lara's licensing as a driver with a driver license. If a driver had a fake driver license and came to my home to purchase a car, and they purchased that car and went out here and killed somebody because they stole somebody else's driver license, so long as I did my receipt and what was required of me, that would not come back on me because that person had the stolen card. But because a police officer with cancer of the mouth, a federal agent with a gun, something none of us can do, nobody here can have a gun and marijuana, but we're going to transport it in an armored car with guns. A plant that's never killed nobody. How did that officer get that card? I FOIA'd Lara, and he's protected. So technically, Lara is aiding and abetting him. You're shielding him. That is how I look at it. I also support home grows. I do not believe a single patient should be at the mercy of any dispensary, any man nor woman, to grow their own cannabis. It should be planted in our gardens right next to our tomatoes. people complain about the pesticides and which I'm all for organic grow, 100% for it. You're forcing people to use harsh chemicals by forcing them to go indoors when nature meant it to be outdoors. I'm finished.
Thank you, ma'am. Next up, we have Mike Pavlik, who wants to speak on regulation and compliance.
Hello, my name is Michael Pavlak. I'm the owner of Stash.Doc LLC. We're a fully integrated third-party vendor for the metric system, and we're headquartered in Troy, Michigan. We focus on touch-free RFID solutions to track plant movements and packages throughout the industry. It's great to see that the MRI is in place, and it will be interesting to see how we can improve regulation and compliance, but there are still some pretty deep-seated problems with the compliance in general. The metric system does not provide vendors any access to support transporters in any way. We have no ability to look up manifest data for them. Transporters don't actually do any routing. Growers do routing, which obviously causes problems as soon as you work with more than one grow. So there's just a deep-seated problem. I would urge you guys to push to see if there's any way that we can get those things fixed in the metric system. I also urge you to consider the latest metric bulletin number 44 that was just released. Colorado just collapsed all their licensing because the burden of tracking license plants under each license when you have multiple licenses makes no sense. There's no value in doing it. It makes insights harder to realize. You have to duplicate your rooms across all your licenses, all your strains across your licenses, and then aggregate that back up somehow in reporting. It makes no sense. So please consider using a primary license and then having the other licenses as supporting just to increase plant counts. It makes no sense. And please do it before the data kind of gets out of control. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Jeffrey Hank speaking on regulations.
Good morning, Director, and Desmond, Kavita, everybody else. I assume this, between the five of you, is going to be a little less colorful than we used to see up here. Couple of disparate points based on what people have said. Certificate of occupancy at the local level is a real problem. A lot of places, people don't have certificates of occupancy. LAR is looking for them. So I heard the building inspector, I'm sorry, whatever your position is earlier, mention this, and I've seen this pop up a bunch of times, that there maybe could be, this is all efficiency issues, that maybe that is something that needs to be looked at. I've seen projects where people can't even get a certificate of occupancy, and then that holds up the licensing. Metric, it would be good if people who are prospective licensees could do metric training. I know there are people right now who have passed inspections but are not entirely qualified, and they're sitting there just waiting, doing nothing. And they can't do metric because they don't have the operating license. So maybe there's a way to, like some of these other points, to get metric a little bit more user-friendly for all of us. Third point would be on the capitalization. We're seeing a lot of requests for people who have been in this for a year or so. Through the licensing process, they've been spending money, and they're being asked to prove capitalization like a year later after originally submitting documents to do it. Obviously, people who've been in business for a year are spending some of their money, so they may not have that same capitalization, and if that's being used to hold up or they have to go get more money, just seems like, hey, if you proved it on the front end, you should expect that a business is gonna use its resources, and that shouldn't have to be proved a second time. The fourth is the regulatory fees. Obviously, the agency needs money to operate, but when you have a multi-licensed facility, let's say someone has 10 Class Cs at a facility, does it really require $66,000 fees or whatever it might be? Maybe it does, but most of the time you're looking at a single facility. There's a little bit more for BFS to do for fire code, and you're looking at one design or whatever it is. So as you roll into adult use, hopefully there's not going to be the same regulatory fees or duplicative regulatory fees, but everything from the licensing fees, understanding these are two separate programs, but licensing fees to the regulatory fees, if those could be merged or some sort of break given just based on the efficiencies of it. Again, does a single facility with 10 licenses require 10 regulatory fees? I don't think it probably does. And if that same fees are with the legalization, it's just going to be very, very expensive. And there's a sentiment that, you know, everyone's just made of money in the industry, and they're not. And echoing some of the comments earlier, we want mom and pop businesses to be able to survive. Even if they're going to end up selling off to the major players someday, that at least is creating wealth and opportunity for a lot of Michiganders to get into this. And if they're kept out at the front end, you know, that doesn't happen. So inclusion in the process is important. I do give you a lot of respect. I'll tell you, things are moving a lot better now. They're moving fast. People are more friendly. Everything just seems to be coming together. I filed 5 applications last week. I wish I would have known that you were changing the application and not have all the 1 year financials, you know, but that's good that those kind of things are happening. Final point about your regulatory power. About a year ago, I came up here and I talked about the Chinese vape cartridges. Vape cartridges are one of the most popular items. It's probably healthier than smoking, but these things are full of heavy metals. And I don't think the public knows enough about this. And we don't, I'm a huge proponent of all this, and we don't want to have 20 or 30 years from now, though, a bunch of people having popcorn lung or having whatever it might be. So maybe you don't have the power to do this, but to the extent you do, we want to see, you know, these products available on the market. But if you're going to police something or enforce something heavier, the whole point of the regulatory power is really for public health, safety, and welfare, right? And this is about health. So to the extent you can, I think maybe more enforcement, but that's not the answer, because it's having the access. So it's not only enforcement, but it's an education thing. I don't think most consumers, maybe this isn't your role, but the more you can do to publicize this, I don't think most people know this. And if we got all these people using these products and they're contaminated, it's a problem. And if we don't get the system up and running and these safe products in there, whether they're coming from caregivers or licensed growers, you are having people going to the street. I mean, how many people did buy street vaporizer cartridges at the Cannabis Cup last week? And how many of those are potentially toxic? I mean, I'm just playing devil's advocate here, but it's not healthy probably. And, you know, the more you can do on that, and the more you can maybe put out some public information on it, try to get to a workable system. I echo a lot of the comments here that there's not product available for people and stuff that people want. So the reality of that is, when they can't get it, they will, you know, people will go somewhere else, and they're going to places, and even in other states, you see there's people buy cartridges on the street, and they're probably all contaminated with these heavy metals. So from a health perspective, I think that's one of the important things you guys could do if you can. It's not your job to help industry, but everybody, including industry people, are in the dark about what to do about these vape cartridges, and trying to have a healthier way for people to consume that. So I encourage you to take a look at that, and I appreciate all the work you do today.
Thank you. Next up, we have Eric Foster speaking on ensuring 2 commercial markets for medical and recreational.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My grandmother always said that you have to accept the conditions that are in front of you before you can start to plan for your goals and achieving those goals. The thing that we have to realize with marijuana, and hearing a lot of the comments and working in the industry with licensees and other entities, is that marijuana is coming from the former shadows into a legal, compliant industry. It's a pharmaceutical product that requires regulation, but also in requiring regulation, is still in a proof of concept period, where it is demonstrating that it can be a positive actor. In that frame, one of the things that we have to do here in Michigan that some of our other states that have adopted medical and rec have not done is ensuring that we have 2 viable commercial sectors, the medical sector and the recreational sector. One of the challenges of moving federal legislation through to legalize the industry and to remove all of the barriers has been, when states have adopted the recreational side, they've tended to fade away from the medical side, which that's the reason why the industry has had its ability to leverage positive information, communication, and health benefits, is the medical side. Michigan has an opportunity through doing a few things. One, with respect to, on the medical research side, doing like California has a bill and Maryland has done this as well, that codifies state research for research universities, hospitals to partner with licensees on continuing studies to address and improve the quality of marijuana products for specific health ailments. Now, the MRTMA did have a provision for research on PTSD if FDA approved, but in other states, they are doing and actually codifying in statute the ability for in-state research to focus on everything from epilepsy to cancer to depression and mental illness and the other ailments that are impacting the lives of the patients. Doing steps like that, as well as creating a pathway for those who are caregivers on the medical side that want to become licensees on the medical side, to have a 6 license pathway to be able to support the industry, but also utilize their care for patients to be able to codify and partner with research universities and institutions. An individual caregiver today is not a business entity that can enter into a legally binding relationship with the Michigan State or Carmano's Cancer Institute, but if they're a business, they have that ability. And then at the same time, ensuring that there are similar requirements for application, fees, and monitoring for both sectors, so that you don't necessarily blend the two sectors together, but you allow the two to stand and work in conjunction. If you're in a community that's opted in for medical and you have 30 businesses that are licensed, and then you decide to opt in for recreational with the potential of licensing 30 more, it's better to have 60 businesses operating in your community, employing people and paying taxes, versus having just 30 that then are doing both. So those are some things to consider in this process to ensure. And when we also talk about the taxation side, just have to be real. And another dynamic, if you're going to have buy-in from local elected officials and communities, when a new business sector is coming in, there has to be, and there's going to be, regulation and taxation that's a part of it. You cannot just have an industry grow without operating under similar confines as other commercial sectors. If this industry is going to be what it can be, and Michigan being a leader and showing the federal government that you can have 2 viable sectors, you have to set up the rules, follow the process, and accept what the conditions are today to make it be what it can be, which is a complete separate track from individual activity, either as a patient under MMA or as an individual under MRTMA, where you have those individual freedoms. That is a complete separate aside. So just wanted to share those comments, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. Next up, we have Coleman A. Young II, who wishes to speak on social equity.
Hi, Director Bisbone to the Honorable Regulatory Body. I am a former State Senator Coleman Alexander Young II, and my question is basically about social equity. I heard a little bit about that they were going to come out with a plan when it's over, and the reason why I'm asking is because I just think that in a time in this state where African Americans are 3 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana, even though they use it at the same rates as their Caucasian, their white counterparts, I think for Black people to bear the brunt of the war on drugs and not be able to participate in the process, I think is shameful. And part of what I do as a consultant is actually help people with social equity programs involving marijuana. So I also just wanted to offer my assistance and my advice and my help. If I could, I have my number on file with you as well. But I think this is something that's very important, not just for social equity, but also for economic development in a lot of these areas that are hard hit, whether you're talking about in predominantly majority minority areas, such as the Detroit, such as Flint and other areas. I think that this could be a boon and a blessing for a lot of people. I think also in terms of healthcare as well. So I'm just here to offer my services and do everything I can. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for your work.
Thank you. Next up, we have Margot Bruner, wishing to speak on transparency.
Hello, my name is Margot Brunner. I am the political director for the Michigan Cannabis Industry Association. And I want to say that despite the misdeeds and missteps of the rollout of this program, I am really happy to see this level of transparency moving forward. It is very much so much needed for this next step of adult use. Also, prior to my career in policy, I was actually in the automotive industry and supply chain for quite some time. And so I had a question, actually, this is only a comment portion, but she mentioned that the analytics was being used to enforce. I also wanted to know if that analytics report was being used for standard practices like safety stock to ensure confidence in the market for both patients and licensees. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Allison Ireton, wishing to speak on caregiver product and home delivery.
Good morning, and thanks for having this meeting. And like others have commented, it was a very nice, relaxed. It was nice to meet everybody who we talked to on the phone, who's really responsible for moving this program forward. And you know, I've noticed a remarkable change in the past few months. My clients are happier that things are moving along very quickly. You know, it's nice to get a pre-qualification letter in an email, you know, a day after you give them a piece of information that they're asking for. So I think it's made my job a lot easier as an attorney. Sorry, Allison Ireton. I'm an attorney in Ann Arbor, and I represent MMFLA licensed businesses and also applicants wishing to get into the market. So it has made my job a lot easier. So thank you so much. And this sounds like an Oscar speech, but I'm going to thank Tammy and Keisha in particular. So if any of you are their bosses, I've loved working with them as analysts, and they're always very responsive. And now they are bugging me for information. They help keep me on track. So I just wanted to get that out there. The second comment I have is about caregiver product coming through processing centers and cultivation. I am happy to hear that Choice Labs is having luck with that. The processor that I represent, Peregrine Manufacturing, has not had any luck. They've asked for caregiver product, and you probably already understand this, but I guess for the sake of putting it on the record, the difficulty people are having, licensed businesses are having getting caregiver product in is that the risk is all entirely on the caregiver. And I didn't hear Choice Labs say that they were paying for the product until it passed. I'm assuming that's not what they're doing. Maybe they are. But the risk that the caregiver is taking is, and this actually literally happened in January of this year, a caregiver brought in 10 pounds of, well, they brought in 16 pounds of blueberry flour to Peregrine Manufacturing when this was the policy before. You can't test a 16-pound batch. You can only test 15 pounds. So Sci Labs broke it into a 10-pound batch and a 6-pound batch. The 10-pound batch of the same exact flour from the same exact place, the 10-pound batch passed, the 6-pound batch failed. So what happened in that case was the 6 pounds had to be destroyed. The caregiver didn't get paid for that product. They got paid for the 10 pounds, but it was from the identical batch. That caregiver accused Peregrine of doing a switcheroo. You know, we had to invite the caregiver with Brad, the enforcement agent, to see it being destroyed. You know, they wanted the videotape. It just created a huge legal morass. So when this became the policy again recently, I said, well, we need a contract around this to protect the person bringing in the product. Because if someone's going to give you $30,000 to $50,000 or $100,000 worth of product and it fails testing, once it's in metric, you can't take it back out and give it to them. And I understand the next question would be, well, why would you give them back product that didn't pass? Well, maybe it didn't pass. Maybe just like in that one example where the same batch half passed and half failed. I don't know how to explain that. You know, but for the last 10 years, these are the products that have been available to people. And like Angie said, the first speaker, you know, people are adults. They're making these decisions. This is the product they've been smoking, ingesting for the past 10 years. When you can't give them back their product, that person's out $100,000. Peregrine has not been able to find a caregiver who's willing to take that risk that their product's going to come in, and if it doesn't pass, they don't get it back. They can't sell it to a patient. They can't sell it to somewhere else. It just gets destroyed. So, I don't know how hard it would be with Metric to let that testing happen first. And then if it passes the test, then bring it into Metric and distribute it to the patient population. And that way the caregiver is not taking the risk that, something goes wrong and they're at a complete loss. So, maybe there's a creative solution we can find to help get more caregiver product in, because I agree there's not enough product in the system right now, but we can at least protect the safety and the welfare of patients if we give it an easier path to get it tested where the risk is not all on the caregiver to lose everything they've done. Or give people the option to choose to, knowing that, it may be tainted or that it failed a LARA test, to take it anyway because it's been working for them for 10 years and it hasn't hurt them in 10 years. The second thing is that I wanted to talk about was temporary operators. I know this is a very difficult problem because a court is involved and has given them the legal permission to stay open. But additionally, there's another competitor to licensed facilities. Jacob had spoken recently about, the cost of running an MMFLA facility is $66,000 a year in license fees. Oh, I'm sorry, I'll wrap it up. But one of my licensees just got a notice to renew. So they have to pay another license fee when they're trying to compete against illegal delivery services, and they're trying to compete against unlicensed operators that have legal cover but are not complying with any Metric regulations. So there's a limit. You can only sell 10 ounces per month to a person. They have no limits. They can sell any product they want. And really, there's no reason that they even need to check medical IDs at this point because they're legally protected by the court to stay open, but they don't have to follow any of the rules and they don't have license fees. So I know it's a difficult problem, but if you could do your best to try to figure out a way to make it fair or a little more fair for the licensed people, I think they would really appreciate that. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Next up, we have Christina Montague.
I want to thank you, Andrew, and the people from the previous board who really tried to work and help. And as an African-American woman, I am probably the only African-American woman in Michigan that has a 100% Black-owned dispensary. Yesterday, in the Chicago Tribune, it said, the headlines, it could be Michigan, Detroit News, Detroit Free Press, said, Illinois' largely white marijuana industry is booming and minority-run businesses want in on it. Yes, this could have been true about right now in Michigan. It is so hard for me. I'm in Ann Arbor. I see these unlicensed business, major, big, selling thousands and thousands, don't pay taxes. And then when I come to but they're welcome in these meetups on Facebook. I come to a Facebook meeting in Ann Arbor, all white males. I come in, they stop talking. They don't start talking till I leave. That is how I'm treated. And you can look at my evaluations. I pay my taxes. My evaluations are very, very good. I just want to be able to do business without being taken advantage of. These lenders or investors, they want to give you done built up your business, oh, we'll give you X amount of dollars. You just got to give us 80% of the business, 90% of the business. That's the Black women in Detroit, what happened to them. I am just so frustrated. I wrote this letter to the governor and mailed it, and I'm going to give to you one to you, Andrew. And I have been studying what they did in California and Oregon to help minorities to get into the business. And it's not a free deal. You have to pay the money back. But there should be some way. I am trying, I can't make my my Huron View Provisioning Center successful because I can't get a grow and I can't get a processing. I have 4 major Black women in Detroit that have been turned down by provisioning centers and businesses nobody will do business with. They can bake like I don't know what. They are waiting for me to come in and help them start their own businesses, not mine. They want to start businesses where they can sell their edibles all around the state. I'm here, I'll volunteer, I do, you see, look at my evaluations, look at Weed Maps and what they say about us. I just want a chance. I'm putting myself up. You can use me as a demonstration project. I will help, and I promise you, we will help, and as many of us will help get more African Americans legally in this business, because it just is not fair. And it's not, and I know I'm not saying the state, but it's a white boys network, and they are not letting Black people in.
Thank you. Next up, we have Ryan Fitzpatrick speaking on cytotoxic vaporizer cartridges.
Well, thank you for letting me speak again. Please excuse my stammering. Public speaking is not really my forte. So part of my CMU major, I'm doing undergraduate research on vape condensate, which is the smoke condensated into a liquid from vaporizers. And some fine gentleman earlier mentioned how cheap manufacturing processes that happen a lot in China can make these very dangerous to humans by leaching metals into them and do not make them safe for use. So my research has pointed out that this vape condensate is pointing to be cytotoxic, which means it kills cells, cyto meaning cell, toxic meaning kill. And so I would love to work with the agency to help safety compliance facilities work toward goals to test these vape cartridges thoroughly and make sure that they're not delivering products to patients that are essentially hurting or killing them, and making sure that everything is as safe as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jen Zielinski speaking on municipalities.
Good morning. Thank you for holding this meeting, and thank you for allowing me to comment. I just have a couple of questions related to the, I think the most recent Facebook Live that you broadcasted with Mr. Harns. Relative to the municipalities having to opt out of the MRTMA, should an applicant provide an application to the state for a municipality that hasn't opted in for adult use either way? The department will begin reviewing that application. I'm making an assumption that the department would also reach out to the municipality and where that facility is going to be located. However, in that 90-day review period that you have after the municipality is contacted, will that municipality then have the opportunity to opt out? And if so, what happens to the application that's already been submitted for that particular applicant? Further, with regards to the required medical operations prior to applying in the adult use market, is this specifically going to be geared towards operational and licensed medical folks, or is this only going to be required if you have received a medical pre-qualification? So I guess just some clarity as to what point in the medical process are the applicants able to apply to the adult use market? Thank you.
Thank you. That was the last comment card. Is there anyone else that would like to address the meeting? Seeing no one, I would again like to encourage everyone, you can visit our website or sign up for our email distribution lists. If you have any additional questions, you can feel free to either call the agency or forward those via email. We'll be happy to provide some information there. With no other items before the agency, we'll call this meeting adjourned. That's how you hit a gavel. Did you see that? Sean Gallagher.